Let's see here what you got to say. Will the laptop be on there by its feet or by a clamp? Hold down. Gravity is all it's going to need. Believe it or not, I actually have some similar holders, and it's going to be just fine. The big thing about it is that it's not going to get bumped around a lot. Now, one thing I'm noticing here is this corner is pretty smooth here, but I actually have a slight misalignment here, where this piece coming up is a little bit lower than this. There's a few different ways we could actually tackle that. The way I'm going to tackle it is I'm actually going to clamp this to the workbench. And I could theoretically just sand and sand and sand and waste all my time, which isn't very appealing to me. Helps if I actually clamp to a good surface. Or I could break out a card scraper. You resemble that comment? Let's zoom in a bit on this and let you guys see what a card scraper does. If I can find a sharp card scraper. This one and this one might be good enough, though I probably need to resharpen these. So these are card scrapers. They are just little pieces of metal. They come in various shapes and sizes and everything. And the idea is that you file it flat and then you burnish it so that you get a slightly upturned sharp edge. And all you got to do is you flex it out a little, like that, and you scrape the wood. And then you end up with a finish that's actually smoother than most sanding. This wood is actually starting to shine. Oh, there we go. This one's sharp. You just bend it and push. And it will just scrape that wood smooth. I use this for leveling tabletops all the time. I can feel a little bump over here. You always want to go kind of at an angle, especially when you have intersecting boards like this. Because if you don't, you're actually going to break the grain quite severely. Yeah, all that just from a few hand strokes. Yeah. And technically, this is probably thick enough that I could use a small hand plane or something to level this out, but I like using my card scrapers. They are actually quite a bit of fun. And that got it down close enough to where I can sand again. Now, the reason I turn the microphone off when I sand is simply because, one, you won't understand me because there's a face mask on, and two, I'm going to bop the microphone when I put the face mask on. So I'm going to switch back to sanding. I might actually switch to a coarser grit and then switch back up if it doesn't go pretty quick. This one. Yeah, I don't think you can understand me like this. All right, so there we go. So we'll actually unclamp this from the table. And I probably could put a couple brad nails or something into this. I just don't like using nails in my projects. I can go, I'm feeling pretty confident in this where I could probably cut this loose or cut this square and get this glued up. And I hear someone rolling around in the next room or stomping around. Because, yeah, there's just the ever so slight unevenness there. But the glue is looking dry. So let's head back over to table saw and clean this up a little. Now this can be a little tricky in general because it's really going to be a challenge to determine what edge to reference off of if you're unlucky. In this case, we're probably going to be fine. I've got it top down so that I know that the flat side is down. And I also know, with how I glued it up, that this centerpiece is actually just a hair proud of the two ends. So that's going to give me a very clean edge to reference off of. So I put my fence back on the table saw, and I don't really need to do much here. I just need to take the ever so slightest sliver off of this. So I'm just getting it where the blade barely touches this thing, and then we're going to clean up the edges. So plug in the table saw, mute the microphone, and here we go. That didn't touch. And that's clean. That first pass, it didn't even touch the workpiece. So that piece is all squared up. We can actually go back over here and glue that fascia on. And at that point, well, actually, I'm going to resand this top part, or this base, and then we can glue it together, and we'll be all set. There we go. Let's see what we can do here. Will these clamps be long enough? First off. Barely. Okay, so 12-inch clamps will work. Oh wait, I've got to cut this piece to length, don't I? Getting ahead of myself. Trying to get this wrapped up. So, we'll actually go back to the table saw. We'll just rotate the camera a bit. And just like before, I'm going to use this piece to tell me how long the other piece needs to be. I've got my piece, my end that I marked earlier for that needs cut, my clean end. So I just need to bring my miter gauge over. Actually, we'll set this down. We'll get the miter gauge out. We'll slide it up. Get it down over here. I'm going to have to loosen it. Set my stop. Now it should just be as simple as bringing it up to kiss the blade, bringing this up, and tightening it. Let's see how that works. It's not really gripping, it's just barely grazing across that blade. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to make it just a hair tighter. Because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shave this just a hair and double verify that these are the same length. So mute my mic and carry that off after I check chat real quick. So we should be good now to glue. Before I glue up, I'll show you how this is going to work, because I'm going to have to do this off stream. But this is a monitor mount. It has a standard mount on it called a Visa mount. It has 4 holes. So once this is all glued up, dried, and I apply my paste wax, all I'm going to do is take this, flip it over on the bottom, of course, get it centered for where I want. It usually involves playing with it a bit, trying out centers of gravity. And then I'll just take a pencil and mark the holes, or sometimes I'll actually take a punch or a drill bit that's the exact size of the hole to mark the center of the hole, pre-drill, and just attach it. Nothing fancy. But we've got to glue this together. Take my gloves off. Don't want to get glue all over the gloves. And all I need to do make sure there's adequate glue. That's probably overkill, but I'd rather it be overkill than underkill. Flop it down. Make sure my parts where I marked it for my glue. Just kind of get it close up. And then I'm going to bring my corners in slowly. That way I can make sure that these ends stay aligned. And we're just going to get it kind of snug and kind of snug. Feel my ends. And it's actually feeling like this board's a little long, but that's okay. I can shave it down or I could sand it. Squeeze a little bit tighter. Squeeze a little bit tighter. And believe you me, there is a ton of squeeze out here. That's okay. So this end is actually perfectly smooth to each other. And that end is maybe a 64th, a few thousandths of an inch off. But that's okay, we can just cut it to size. Then I'm going to grab a little clamp and clamp it in the middle. Nice thing about oak is it's stiff enough and rigid enough that I don't really have to add a million clamps. And now, time to wipe out the squeeze out. Which unfortunately, well, it's actually solid enough right now. You could actually see all that squeeze out. And all the squeeze out on that line on the table. And I've seen people actually use sawdust to help clean up squeeze out. I've never had any luck with it, but it's such a neat looking way to do it. They just keep like a vat of loose sawdust around and like dump a handful on. Seems like a neat concept to me, but never worked for me. So we're going to wipe down the table first, simply because that was a lot of glue. And then I'm going to actually kind of use glue like caulk in that seam along here. So we'll actually start in the middle and work our way out. Start in the middle and work our way out. Every time we're just taking a little bit more glue off. Then start in the middle, work our way out. Cover our hands in glue because that's what we like to do. And it's just like spreading caulk with your finger. Just spread it into that groove. And it fills up any gaps quite nicely. And we'll go and we'll wet one down and make sure that we get it all clean. Now, since we pre-sanded this, the glue isn't going to go too terribly deep into any of the wood pores, thankfully. And when you gently wipe it down with a little bit of water, the glue will actually stand out quite nicely. All right. And now we'll do the bottom. Wipe off the table again. I hear someone inside hooping and hollering over something. Yeah, I heard that. And pull all the squeeze out. It might seem wasteful, but honestly, for what amounts to maybe a penny or two of glue, it's not really worth me fighting and worrying over it. It'd be more wasteful to not have enough. and have to re-glue everything. And there we go. There's the bottom all wiped down. So now this is going to sit overnight and dry, because that's the way I roll. So in a little bit under 3 hours, I've gone from scrap to this handy dandy laptop stand carrier thing. And really, remaining steps on this are finish wiping the glue off the table, which won't take much. Let it dry. I'm going to sand it, then I'm going to take paste wax to it and give it a little bit of a protective finish, polish it up a little, and then I'm going to attach it to the base, and it's done. So for those of you that don't know what paste wax is, this is a finish I use all the time. It's hand applied. You're done in 5-10 minutes after you apply it. You know, it's not like your durable finishes. This is not a durable finish, but it's basically just a wax that you put on a paper towel or a rag. You spread it on nice and thick, and then you buff it out just like waxing a car, and it fills in all the little gaps and everything and soaks into the wood and actually gives you a very protective finish. I mean, this tabletop, I put a paste wax finish on 5 years ago or so, and I've had to reapply it a couple times, but glue doesn't stick to it. You know, it's very smooth. It stays relatively clean. I mean, I've got marks and cuts and scrapes in here, but it won't protect it from that. But I just put fresh paste wax in, and if a little bit of water drops on it, it's not the end of the world, unless I leave it there for days on end. But that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for interacting. Thank you for putting up with me moving the camera around. And that's all I have for right now. So if I have energy tomorrow, which I probably won't, I may stream the last part of this, which will not take very long. It might be half an hour to an hour. You could see the final product. Thank you. Have a great night.